Put your hand together. Come on, put them hands on, clap your head. Yeah. He's so good and he's great. The Bible said the Lord is great and mighty. He is mighty in battle. Yeah, great is the Lord. Good God Almighty, He reigns. He's bigger than all of your problems. He's bigger than all of your storms. Yeah. Good God Almighty, He reigns. He's great, great and mighty. He's strong in battle. There's nobody is bigger. Hey, there's nobody is better. I love him 'cause He reigns. Yeah, He's so great because He reigns. Stretch the Lord out. He holds there for you and me. He died, but that's not the story. I said 3 days later, He got up out of the grave. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Make a joyful noise, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before His presence with singing. Serve the Lord, for He that the Lord. Nobody is God. It is He that made us. We are. It is He that made us. We are. We are His people. There's nobody bigger. There's nobody better. I searched the world, couldn't find nobody. I looked to the left, I looked to the right, couldn't find nobody that will hold me tight. But I got on my knees, then I got on my knees, called on G. He came to my rescue. Great, great is the Lord.
I don't know if they're playing a video or if this is, I'm not sure what it is.
Wait a minute, Agent. Wait a minute. Grab somebody by the hand. Come on, grab them. And say, neighbor, I'm squeezing your hand. 'Cause you need to know what it feels like to hold the hand of a survivor. Tell him, say, God been good to me. He brought me through the storm. Yeah.
Greetings. To God be the glory. Great things He has done. To Bishop Adam Jefferson Richardson, Senior Bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. To Bishop Francine Brookins, Presiding Prelate of the 18th Episcopal District and Chair of the International Health Commission. To Bishop Stafford J.N. Wicker, Presiding Prelate of the 8th Episcopal District and President of the Council of Bishops. To Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, Supervisor of the 18th Episcopal District and Medical Director of the International Health Commission. To Dr. Carl V. Hill, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer of the Alzheimer's Association. To Reverend Dr. Natalie Mitchum, Executive Director of the International Health Commission. To everyone attending the 4th Annual Connectional Purple Sunday program, greetings. I'm Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall, Program Chair and today's MC. On behalf of Bishop Brookins, Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, Dr. Carl Hill, and members of the Partnership's Steering Committee, I welcome you to the 4th Annual Connectional Purple Sunday. We are pleased that you chose to spend this afternoon with us and learn more about Alzheimer's disease and related dementias and how the AME Church and the Alzheimer's Association are working to provide programs and services that will address the needs of our congregation and communities. As most of you know, Purple Sunday is a time set aside during church service to bring awareness to Alzheimer's disease. Many AME churches, like historic St. James AME Church in New Orleans, Louisiana, under the pastorate of Reverend Dr. Demetrius Phillips, had a Purple Sunday program today, where the Louisiana Executive Director, Ms. Dolores Hurst, was the presenter. And for that, we are grateful. I also want to thank my pastor at St. Paul AME in Dallas, Reverend Kevin Hodge, for all of his support and for the work that our church does to promote Alzheimer's awareness. We ask that you feel free to post your photos on the Facebook page of the International Health Commission. Today's program was designed so that you could get a firsthand account of how to distinguish Alzheimer's from normal aging and what to do if you or a loved one is experiencing cognitive decline. As Alzheimer's has been confirmed as a public health crisis, we will hear about federal legislation addressing Alzheimer's. You will also hear how the staff of the Alzheimer's Association is reaching out to churches and how our members can get involved. We will also hear what the 2nd Episcopal District is doing through the Women's Missionary Society to bring about awareness of Alzheimer's and related dementia. The call to action will energize us to go farther in supporting this work. We ask that you put any questions, suggestions, etc. in the chat, and they will be addressed at a later time. The opening prayer will be given by Reverend Ronald Ivy, a member of our steering committee who is on the ministerial staff of St. Paul AME Church in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Let us go to the throne of grace. Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you with grateful hearts, acknowledging your sovereignty and grace. As we gather for the African Methodist Episcopal Church and the National Alzheimer's Purple Sunday event, we pray and seeking your guidance and blessing. Lord, thank you for the AME Church, a beacon of faith and hope in our communities. Bless this denomination as we unite in prayer and support for those affected by the Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. May our efforts bring comfort, strength, and awareness to families facing the challenges of memory loss. Dear Father, we ask that you lift up the National Alzheimer's Association, an organization committed to advocacy, education, research, and the fight against Alzheimer's. Grant them wisdom and resources as they work tirelessly to improve the lives of individuals with dementia and their caregivers. Heavenly Father, we ask for your presence to be felt during this Purple Sunday event. May your love surround us as we come together to honor all of those who are touched by this disease. Offer support to the caregivers advocate for greater understanding and compassion. We pray for healing and comfort for those who are living with the disease. May they find peace and solace in your unfailing love. Strengthen their spirits and grant them moments of clarity, joy amidst the challenges they face each day. Lord, we ask for your blessings upon all involved in planning and participating in this event. May their efforts be fruitful, and may the message of hope and unity resonate within our communities and beyond. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, let the church say amen, amen, and amen. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and beloved members of the African Methodist Episcopal Church family, it is with great honor and privilege that I stand before you today to introduce a remarkable leader, a dedicated servant of God, the esteemed chairperson of the Connectional AMEC Church Health Commission, and the presiding prelate, the Right Reverend Francis A. Brookins, Esquire, Bishop of the 18th District. The Right Reverend Francis Brookins embodies the spirit of service and commitment to the well-being of our community. Within AME Church, her leadership has been characterized by wisdom, compassion, a deep-rooted faith in God's guiding hand. In addition to her spiritual leadership, the Right Reverend Brookins brings a wealth of expertise to her role as the chairperson of the Connectional Health Commission. As we embark on this meaningful journey together, let us draw inspiration from the exemplary leadership of the Right Reverend Francine A. Brookins, Esquire. May her vision, compassion, and steadfast commitment to serving others continue to guide and inspire us. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to the Right Reverend Francis A. Brookins as we unite in solidarity to make a difference in the lives of those affected by the Alzheimer's disease and related dementias.
Thank you so much, Brother Ivy, for those kind words of introduction and for the passionate and compassionate prayer. I know God heard us as we prayed and is indeed answering already. I greet you in the joy of Jesus today, welcoming you to this fourth annual Alzheimer's Awareness celebration. We are excellently led by Sister Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall, who many of you know is passionate about this because it impacts her personally, but she's passionate about it because she knows that it impacts all of us personally, and she cares enough to dedicate extensive amounts of time and passion and effort to lead our efforts on behalf of the African Methodist Episcopal Church International Health Commission to make sure that we do everything we can to both end Alzheimer's and also to bring awareness to what it is, what it isn't, and how we cope with it as we encounter it. There are increasing numbers of us who are being impacted by this dis-ease. Today, you are in for a treat. We are going to get information that will change our lives. Our hearts will certainly be touched. They are always being touched by these programs. Expect that you will likely shed a few tears. You will probably laugh a little bit, but one thing for sure, you will know that you are not alone. You will know that your church cares, and you will find ways to partner with others who are in the process of managing life with this disease. It is my privilege now to present to some and to introduce to others Carl Hill, PhD, MPH, who is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the Alzheimer's Association, overseeing strategic initiatives to strengthen the association's outreach to all populations and providing communities with resources and support to address the Alzheimer's crisis. And it is indeed a crisis. In this role, Dr. Hill is responsible for driving association-wide messaging and mobilization efforts addressing systemic health inequities in treatment, clinical trials, and research. I said inequities in treatment, clinical trials, and research. With support from the National Institute on Aging, Dr. Hill led the association's work to convene the first national conference dedicated specifically to addressing disparities and promoting equity in dementia science. AAIC advancements toward health equity in Alzheimer's disease and related dementias brings together researchers from around the world annually to examine disparities in dementia prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. Dr. Hill also develops cross-functional partnerships with organizations such as ours to advance Alzheimer's and other dementia awareness efforts and to deliver disease education to those who are disproportionately impacted and underserved. As a result of his leadership, the association has broadened its reach to previously underserved communities with over 30 new national partners. Within the association, Dr. Hill collaborates with human resources to attract talent and develop resources that champion staff diversity and a culture of inclusion. We are so grateful to have him here with us. He is one of us, part of our Health Commission family now, and I present him to you at this time. Dr. Hill.
Oh, thank you so much, Bishop Francine Brookins. It is such an honor, I tell you, and on behalf of our CEO and President, Dr. Joanne Pike, and all of the Alzheimer's Association, I'm just thrilled and honored to welcome everyone to this fourth annual Connectional Purple Sunday. We worked so hard to come to this point, and we're just thrilled to work with the African Methodist Episcopal Church. At the Alzheimer's Association, we believe that engaging diverse perspectives is critical to achieving health equity. What is health equity? It means that all communities, all people have a fair and just opportunity to early diagnosis of Alzheimer's and other dementia and access to risk reduction and quality care. We've got a ways to go, but with emerging treatment options, a growing understanding of risk reduction methods and potential diagnostics like blood tests in the pipeline, we can provide people living with Alzheimer's and other dementia and their caregivers, really important, with real world help and hope for the future. But we must ensure that these advances are accessible and effective for all people, all communities, recognizing that those that are most likely to have Alzheimer's or another dementia are often less likely to be diagnosed, less likely to be recruited to participate into clinical research, and even less likely to have access to care and support services. This must change, and it must change now. So the Alzheimer's Association is leading the way by developing strategic partnerships with trusted national and local organizations to create pathways to greater health equity and inclusion for everyone. As Bishop Francine Brookins mentioned, to date, we've partnered with more than 30 national partners and over 1,000 local organizations across the country and communities to strengthen our outreach and provide communities with culturally appropriate resources and support to address the Alzheimer's crisis. And so, again, we are so honored to partner with Bishop Francine Brookins, Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall, who quarterbacks and leads all of this, Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, and the entire AME Church to help enrich, sustain, and ensure the culture and economic survival and health, the public health of African Americans and persons of African ancestry. Through this partnership, we seek to enhance Alzheimer's and dementia awareness and education in the Black community. We know that Black African Americans are 2 times more likely as white Americans to be living with Alzheimer's or another dementia but less likely, again, to receive any kind of diagnosis. Our partnership, can focus and continues to focus on grassroots engagement to make significant strides towards sharing care and support services, promoting research and advocacy opportunities, and offering disease education to AME church members, their families, and our communities. So again, to everyone, thank you for participating in today's 4th annual Purple Sunday. So thrilled about it. Again, we are honored to partner with AME on such an important event. And now I will turn it over to my very trusted partner and Morehouse School of Medicine fellow alum, Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, to provide more information about our important work together. Dr. Burnett?
Dr. Hill, thank you so much. But before Dr. Burnett comes on, I thought it'd be prudent to introduce her, because although she's been here with us for the past 3 years, not everyone knows her. So I'm going to give a brief bio of Dr.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rosa.
That wasn't in the run of shows, so you didn't know that. I just decided to introduce Dr. Burnett. So the partnership between the AME Church and the Alzheimer's Association is managed through the AME Church's International Health Commission. And I mentioned earlier that our own Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, who is now the supervisor of the 18th Episcopal District, co-chairs that steering committee with me. Reverend Burnett also serves as itinerant minister in the AME Church, and of course, she is a medical doctor. In 2020, Reverend Burnett was appointed by the National Council of Churches USA representative to the World Council of Churches consultation with its ecumenical partners on health to discuss our responses to COVID and its implications on the future of the health and healing ministry. This consultation is beginning active partnership with the World Health Organization, and Reverend Burnett just came back from someplace in Europe. I can't remember. I will say it wrong if I say Switzerland and Sweden or vice versa. But she just came back a couple of days ago from the World Health Organization representing us. She continues to work with the national volunteer agencies active in disaster. Dr. Burnett is
She's also the chair. She's also the chair of that health commission now.
Please, Bishop, please tell us. So we're just so excited that Dr. Burnett is the chair now of that initiative. She's a strong advocate for holistic health. She received her degree in psychology from York College of the City University of New York, undertook postgraduate studies from Queens College of the City University of New York, and obtained a Doctor of Medicine from, as Dr. Hill
Sister Goodall, there you go.
That is a U.S. Army veteran. Without further ado, I present to you my friend, colleague, and a tremendous supporter of the work that the AME Church is doing to help promote health initiatives, Reverend Dr. Miriam Burnett, who is now going to talk about the partnership and introduce our speaker, Doctor. We'll call everybody a Reverend in the AME Church, but Dr. Nikisha Rod.
Thank you so very much. I am ecstatic again to be with you all, and just want to thank you, Sister Goodall, for when I asked for you to take this over, that you did not hesitate in saying yes, and you have done far more than I could have even imagined. And so thank you so very much. Bishop Brookins, thank you for your continued support. Same for Dr. Hill. We call him Reverend on this side because we keep waiting for him to do his initial sermon. It's with excitement that I greet you during this 4th annual Purple Sunday, where we're keying in on stewardship of the mind through Alzheimer's awareness and related dementias. The Purple Sunday, we've already said, provides an opportunity to increase awareness about the impact. But what it also does is it highlights our partnership with the Alzheimer's Association that has been in effect now since 2018, which continues to seek to raise awareness about Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. I highlight that because it is key for those of us of African descent, because we tend to have more of the related dementias than we do Alzheimer's. And now that we are doing a better job of differentiating the two, the partnership is going to begin to do more and more around not only Alzheimer's disease, but the other related dementias, so that we can be better informed, because most of those are preventable. And we will begin to talk about the relationship between the risk factors, for example, diabetes and hypertension, around the other related and other dementias. We also key in on providing information about the benefits of healthy living, reducing health disparities and inequities, as well as providing opportunities for community engagement. Increasingly, we also are finding, and I was a part of the panel that talked about violence and trauma and its negative impact on cognition as it relates to other dementias that are increasingly impacting the Black community. And so we want to ensure that we are talking about this from not only a health standpoint, but from a social justice standpoint. Additionally, the Health Commission website, amechealth.org, and the YouTube channel provide many resources, including recordings of our prior webinars, as well as being able to find information about caregiving and research. We have co-branded informational brochures. Our clergy guide is co-branded to provide guidance on addressing the needs within your congregation. There's a Purple Sunday toolkit that assists districts and churches in implementing an event that you will see exampled here today. Your role as a member of the AME Church and in your community that your church serves can help ensure that everyone receives this important information, especially if they are facing Alzheimer's disease or other dementias. By participating in this initiative, you are helping the AME Church through the leadership of the International Health Commission and the association advance the fight against dementia in our communities. We ask that you seek assistance from your Health Commission coordinator, your local Alzheimer's Association coordinator, your local Alzheimer's Association chapter, in order to engage and provide input during the regarding the educational needs of our churches and communities, so that we may reach our goals, informing everybody wherever they are. We need advocates and we need volunteers. And so we ask also at this moment that you consider one of those roles. Education, awareness, and conversation are vitally important. Purple Sunday can be a catalyst to seek early detection, better understand the diseases, and disseminate knowledge of the care and support resources available. We thank the Alzheimer's Association, led by Dr. Carl Hill, for all of the work that we are doing and achieving together. We thank you. It is now my opportunity to introduce Dr. Nikisha Brown, who I have not met Dr. Brown, but Dr. Rogers, but once you hear her bio, we're all going to want to know why we had not known of her before. Dr. Rogers is a dual-boarded internist and geriatrician, best-selling author, and national speaker from the beautiful island of the Bahamas. She is the daughter of 2 retired educators whose love for the classroom shaped her own passion for teaching. She has over a decade of experience caring for hundreds of complex geriatric patients with multiple medical needs. Through her books, her dynamic in-person and virtual workshops, and online educational resources, she equips medical professionals with the tools needed to help savvy seniors age like royalty. Dr. Nikisha earned her associate's degree in biochemistry from the University of the Bahamas. She then completed her bachelor's in biology at Acadia University in Nova Scotia, Canada. She matriculated at the University of West Indies Medical School, graduating with a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery. She later completed her internal medicine residency at the Yale New Haven Health Bridgeport program. She's awarded a fellowship degree in geriatrics from the prestigious Harvard Medical School. She is the CEO of Age Like Royalty, LLC, geared at changing the perception of aging, something that is also very important to us. A creative at heart, Dr. Nikisha teaches key geriatric principles in a creative, simple format so that medical professionals can provide comprehensive, compassionate geriatric care the Dr. Nikisha way. Dr. Nikisha has the pleasure and privilege of mentoring the next generation of brilliant minds, as she is an associate clinical professor of internal and geriatric medicine in Florida. To rejuvenate, she enjoys spending quality time with her parents and family, listening to music, dancing, and engaging in the creative arts. Dr. Nikisha looks forward to sharing her priceless secrets with us so that our seniors can age like royalty, the children of the Most High, so that we can help our seniors age like royalty. Dr. Rogers, we are so thankful for you to be with us today. And so hopefully somebody has, I don't see her. Where did she go?
I'm here. I can see you.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you so very much. It's multitasking is sometimes difficult. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burnett. So I have my slides. I am ready to go. We are very excited to do this talk. And the person that has my slides attached, I think she is under Anna. We were waiting in the queue to bring them up. So she is right there waiting for you guys to make her a co-host so she could get the slides going. I think we should be all set. But thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm very I look forward to the invitation, and I hope that the next few minutes will just give us some opportunity to go over the basics of dementia and just to make it a really interactive session. As you mentioned, my parents are teachers, they are retired, and so I always grew up in a classroom setting, and for them, education was always power, knowledge was always power, so I always try to frame that when I speak to groups. All right, so we are just waiting for the slides to get up.
I do not see her. I don't see.
Dr. Rogers, can you email your slides to?
Let me see. So she's texting me right now.
Can you look in my, I just sent you a text giving you the address to email your slides, please.
Okay. All right. We'll do that right now.
So we can.
Is she Anna or Ada?
Anna.
She's Anna. She is Anna. Yeah, she's on the call as Anna. Let's see.
There's no Anna in the 221 participants.
But if you can just send your slides over to that email address, I think, Dr. Burnett, if you could assist us with that.
Okay, will do.
Waiting.
And while we're waiting, we have wonderful participation from across the connection. I'm looking at all of these greetings from different places. And when you registered this time, we asked you for some information that included your home church, your Episcopal district, because we're really trying to connect more chapters with local Alzheimer's associations, more local Alzheimer's chapters, I should say, with our AMEC churches. And so by having that information, we'll be then able to reach out to the churches directly without much more ado. So thank you all for that.
And while we continue to wait, let me just thank you, Dr. Rogers, for just listening to your bio is exciting and reminds me of how essential it is that people in the medical profession recognize the difference between a geriatric patient and a pediatric patient and just someone like me who's just a bad patient. How important it is for us to specialize and know the differences and the sensitivities. So thank you. While we're waiting for these slides, before you tell us anything else, thank you for doing what you do to try to help others be sensitive to the ministry that you are doing with God and for seniors.
Thank you so much. And actually so this is why I don't do the technical stuff. So she is signed on as Dr. Nikisha. So if you look on the slide, yeah, she has the slides there. Our apology. This is why.
Do you realize that Mommy stopped this car and DJ could not be?
Yeah. So if you give her permission, at Dr. Nikisha Rogers, you'll get the slides up and going. I do apologize for that.
And another thing, Bishop, as you were saying that, when I got my Social Security card, I also started seeing a geriatrician. And when I went to her office, her nurse said to me, why are you here? You don't look like you need to be here. And I said, well, I'm here because I want to grow old gracefully. And as the years have passed, I know why I need to see a geriatrician. And there is a difference, in a regular primary care doctor and someone who focuses on people who've lived this long. So that's why I reached out to Dr. Rogers, because I know when we talk about Alzheimer's, one of the questions is, well, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and normal aging? And that's something I'm sure, a question she gets to answer a lot. So thank you again, Dr. Nikisha, with your sassy seniors for coming on today to join us.
Definitely, definitely. So I think we are just about ready to get started. Yeah, so she's on. I have made her the co-host.
Thank you, Reverend.
Well, if Sister Goodall is any evidence of what happens when you start seeing a geriatrician, then we all ought to get going right away.
Boy, you're so kind, Bishop. You're so kind. Thank you. Thank you so much. And geriatricians aren't everywhere. As you may come to know, they're few and far between. And I was surprised at that because, we're aging everywhere, but you can't find geriatricians everywhere. That's interesting. But Dr. Rogers is down in Tallahassee, Florida.
Weather is really nice here, nice and warm. Very good weather here. And you're right, it's only 7,000 of us, geriatricians. One of the big challenges we're having with our students is trying to get them to go into this field. And you really have to have a love and a passion for it. Obviously, it isn't as attractive as some of the other specialties, but people that go into it, we tend to be a very caring bunch. And we tend to have been inspired by like a grandmother or a mother or an auntie. There was always someone that kind of stood out. So, you know, but we definitely need more people, you know, doing the work of geriatricians. All right. And thank you all for your patience. Trust me, it'll be okay.
Reverend Fletcher, can you tell Bishop Brookins how to find her?
Is Dr. Nakisha, assistant guest?
Yes, that's it.
Yes, let's just say Dr. Nakisha's assist.
Yes.
Okay. So then Bishop, there she got her.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much for your patience and for your kindness. So we're going to get started. Over the next 25 minutes, our goal is just to walk you through a lot of the things that I find are my bread and butter. I don't know the different types of people on the call, but my hope and prayer is that this will be something that you could take back to your congregants, your families, etc. So when Mrs. Goodall reached out, I was very ecstatic to be a part of this. So without further ado, we're going to go through the stewardship of the mind through awareness of dementia, disease, and all related dementias. And again, Dr. Nakisha Rogers. All right, so next slide. So you guys may be wondering, as we move forward with the next slide. Who in the world is this Dr. Nakisha? Well, I call myself the Jerry Godmother. And as Dr. Burnett said, really enjoy studying the human body, love the care of seniors, recently turned that care of seniors into a book called The Secrets of Sassy, Savvy Seniors, because I believe you all are very, very sassy and savvy. And I just believe in the importance of aging like royalty. Next slide. Professionally, I've been able to be a part of the American Geriatric Society here in Florida, recently joined the Florida Geriatric Society, realized the importance of being, staying up to date with the ABIM, and recently appointed to the International Caregivers Association, which, as I think Dr. Burnett mentioned, and Mr. Hill is looking at holistic approaches to dementia care. Next. But above all that, I just wanted to give you some backdrop about where my interest in seniors really started. So this photo that you see was taken in about 2020. And this was taken, and just to give you some backdrop to it, I'm so sorry. Just to give you a backdrop to it, obviously the gentleman that's in that wheelchair is my father, Herman Rogers, and my mother they always dress alike. So literally wherever they go, they are dressed alike. So we took this photo in 2020 when I was actually on a Zoom call for work, and I got a call from my parents, my mom. And if you guys know about Caribbean people, Caribbean parents are very, very stoic. So they don't really like to show or get their children excited about anything. So when she texted me and she said, "Hey, Keisha, something's wrong. Your father's complaining," I knew instantly, like, hey, she normally doesn't text me like that. Something is not right. So anyway, long and short, this is November. I could remember it instinctively. I was on that call. I had to take myself off the call. And after a series of questions and trying to figure out things and working with that young lady in the yellow, her name is Katrina Monroe. She's my sister, one of the fiercest caregivers out there. She and I worked together almost like a team, 76 and 81 moniker for our birth years. And we worked together to see how we could maneuver to help our father get the care he needed. And interestingly enough, with having a daughter who's a geriatrician and having a sister who is a fierce caregiver, like many of you on this call, there were still a few things that fell through the cracks, not intentionally, but just the way life works. So it sort of clicked to me that if my parents have me and they have my sister, but things are falling through the cracks, imagine the thousands and if not millions of other seniors out there who have no one to speak up for them, who have no one to make sure T's are, crossed and I's are dotted. Anyway, by the grace of God, he made it through. We got the test and everything done. And by the grace of God, he was okay. So fast forward, we were really hoping by the grace of God to get to that Christmas because it was going to be their 61st wedding anniversary. And they made it to that anniversary. And you can see this was just literally a wing and a prayer and just working together, understanding the healthcare system. So in the back, that's me. That's my sister, Katrina. And then those are the lovebirds. They love to dress alike. And they're on this call watching as well. So moving forward, this passion of wanting to provide education and wanting to give the same care that I would expect from my parents is kind of what I try to teach my students and what I try to give myself each and every day. Next slide. So when Mrs. Goodall contacted me and she said we were going to be talking about dementia, I said, yeah, I'm your Jerry godmother. This is my thing. So I wanted to give you all, if you're taking notes, I wanted to give you 5 simple lessons. Love to keep things simple. So the first lesson I want to go over with you all is understanding your risk for dementia. Next slide. So some of the risk factors that we all know when we think about dementia, and like a lot of my students think, oh, Dr. Rogers, that's the stuff for older people. And while that is correct, there's some other risk factors. I think Mr. Hill mentioned it, Dr. Hill mentioned it. Your family history. If you had a father or a mother that had a dementia, then there is, genetic tendencies for you to develop that. We've had situations, I take care in the Florida State, we take care of seniors who were in the past, in contact sports, wrestling, football, etc. And we see later on traumatic brain injuries that set the stage for head trauma and eventual dementias. And then those are the chronic conditions where we as people of color tend to lead the charts. And this is not where we want to be leading the charts, but unfortunately, this is where we're at. So when we have conditions like strokes or diabetes or high blood pressure, that silent killer, and even hearing loss, those are some real chronic conditions that are causing us to outstrip our Caucasian co-parts for dementia. And one thing I wanted to mention before we move on is I love keeping things simple. The section of your brain that controls your hearing sits next to the area that controls your memory. So they're kind of like tenants next to each other. So if you have an issue with your hearing, that can ultimately impact your thinking, your memory. So in addition to those risk factors, going to move forward to another slide. And how many of you recognize this personality in there? Put in the chat if you recognize this personality in the slide. So we all know her. She's been well known as that polarizing personality, Mrs. Wendy Williams. And she's come to the forefront. Yes, everybody knows Wendy. How you doing? How y'all doing? So everybody knows Wendy. And she's, whatever you say about Wendy, she's been polarizing. She has been at the top of her game for decades. But unfortunately, there were also certain risk factors that set her up for issues with her thinking, her memory. And if you watched her documentary just a few weeks ago, I sat down and I was taking notes. And some of the things that stood out to me when I watched Wendy's story was the risk of other things setting you up for dementia. Things like substance use, like alcohol dependence, which she made no secret about. There's also the issue of depression. We saw alarming rates of depression and social isolation with COVID. And obviously with Wendy's story, many of you may have remembered that she said she lost someone that was really, really important to her, and that was her mom. So she was going through bereavement, she's dealing with alcohol issues, she's, dealing with depression. And then the last thing that she's also having to deal with is this autoimmune condition called Graves' disease, where her thyroid, it's like a gland in your neck, is excessively working. So it's working overtime. So she's set up for the issues that they mentioned with dementia. So once you know the risk factors, next slide. It's important, as Dr. Burnett talked about, it's important for us to kind of give a face to this dementia classification. So I get, my mother is on this WhatsApp group with her friends, and a lot of times they will come and ask, is Alzheimer's dementia? Like, what's the difference? So I love answering that question. So when we talk about the dementia classification, I like to keep things simple. Remember, Jerry Godmother is here to simplify your life, okay? That's my passion. Next slide. So understanding dementia, if you could conceptualize this photo, you will be straight. So think of your brain as being divided into just those 4 different distinct areas. So I'm going to touch the front of my head, right? So the front of my head is my frontal lobe, and that frontal lobe is what's keeping you engaged in this conversation with me. So that's your executive function, that's your planning, that's getting everything done. And then you see that orange area, that's allowing me to speak to you. That's your temporal lobe. So that's hearing me and speaking to you. And then your parietal lobe is kind of your sensation, the way you feel the environment. And then that lobe in the back, God is so amazing. You know, he is the author and finisher. So in the back of the brain, in that blue area, that's your occipital lobe. That allows you all to see these slides on the screen, okay? So the wonderful thing about this, and I tell my students when I teach dementia to them, is just think of it. I say, students, and I always give them a pop quiz. I say, on the spot, tell me, what is dementia? And they said, okay, Dr. Rogers, all right. Dementia is simply a deficit in 2 or more of those areas, and it impacts the person's ability to function, simply put. So you don't need to use all the big terminologies and so forth. If you can understand that, then you can get a better appreciation of when people use that terminology. So all we're talking about is 2 areas or more, and the person is unable to function. So you're probably wondering, what is she talking about function? Next slide. So when I talk about function, I talk about things like something as simple as the guy on the left, putting your clothes on in the morning. You know, we call those ADLs, you know, activities of daily living. And then the lady that's smiling with that big smile in the middle, she does something called an IADL. It's an instrumental activity of daily living, like driving. Because with driving, she has to use her frontal lobe. She has to be able to switch lanes. She has to use her occipital lobe, be able to see those cars. So that's a more refined activity of daily living. And for Wendy, staying at the top of her game, being able to plan those shows and know and be on point, being able to do your profession, that's also an IADL. So when you have 2, I don't want to give a pop quiz just yet. Let me keep going. But if you have 2 or more areas in that brain that affects your ability to do an activity of daily living, like dressing yourself, to something more, you know, advanced, running a multi-million corporation like Wendy, then that is what we call dementia in simple terms. Next slide. All right, so the University of North Carolina has this really cool, I like to always reference my sources. They have this really cool umbrella. And so a lot of people used Alzheimer's and dementia synonymously. But all I want you guys to remember is when you hear the word dementia, just think, how many lobes, how many areas? Put in the chat how many areas. So you got to have at least 2 or more areas in the brain that's affected. Yes, Dr. Bowles. Yes, Ms. Porter. So you have to have 2 or more areas in the brain that's affected, and they are unable to function. So the commonest things, there's close to 100 of these, by the way, but for the intents and purposes of today, you have Alzheimer's. That's what we think of when, you know, you get older. Then there's vascular. So this is the person that has the stroke. And you notice, hey, Grammy had this stroke like a year ago, and all of a sudden she can't remember stuff. She's repeating herself. Grammy may likely have had like all vascular dementia. Frontotemporal, remember those lobes I showed you guys a couple of slides ago? That specifically tells you what areas of the brain are affected. So the front and the temporal area, that's 10% of the people. And then there's this really interesting type of dementia called Lewy body. And I took care of a gentleman. He was so wonderful. He was like 80 years young, and he had Lewy body dementia. And his wife, she would get so frustrated, and she'd say, Dr. Rogers, he keeps talking to these little children. And it wasn't bothering him at all. She was more concerned about it. But once we explain with Lewy body dementia, patients tend to have these visual hallucinations that don't really bother them. Then she was able to say, okay, all right, now that you explained it to me, because I didn't know who in the world he kept seeing. So for the intents and purposes, these are the 4 major dementias, but there is a ton, and my students know it's tons of them out there. Next slide. So other reasons why you may develop a dementia is, you know, we think about Alzheimer's getting older, but sometimes when you're young, as a result of, you know, having issues like, say, Down syndrome, we're seeing dementia in a lot of our younger people, much less than 65. You know, back about 20 years ago, you guys may have remembered those those reports about mad cow disease. And so we found that there was a related dementia with that. Of the virus from the mad cow, and that those were called prions. So that virus-related dementia was also, we were also seeing, but there's so many that I can't get into them, but I just wanted you to be aware that there's different types that exist. There's young onset, there's older onset, there's stuff that's related to infections, there's stuff that's genetically inherited, there's stuff related to Parkinson's. So it is a very big umbrella. Next slide. So like I said, there's nearly 100 types. And I'm going to give you guys a quick pop quiz. There's some well-known personalities that you'll kind of, if I show their faces, I am hoping that you'll remember the type that they have. Anna, number 1. So who's put in the chat if you recognize this personality? If you recognize this personality, put the name of this personality in the chat. And also, I want you to go a step further. There we go, Miss Leslie. So Miss Leslie was the first responder. Yes. So can anybody put in the chat what type of dementia they think that he had? Let's see. Near, what type of dementia do you think President Ronald Reagan? What type of dementia did he have? I'll give you a clue. So he developed his later on in life. So if you had to take a guess, what type of dementia do you think that he had? Oh, good. Everybody's putting some really good stuff in there. Anna, let's give them the answer. Yeah, so he actually had Alzheimer's. Okay, all right, you guys are doing good. All right, Ms. Flores, we're gonna give a second one. Anna, let's give the second photo. All right, now everybody knows this gentleman. This gentleman, we all know, put in the chat if you know that Mia is on it. Oh my goodness, you guys are on it. So Bruce Willis, Die Hard, everybody knows him, you know, exceptional actor. So if you were paying attention to the social media and the postings, his family has brought a lot of attention, much needed attention and resources to a particular type of dementia that he had. Can you put in the chat what type of dementia did Bruce Willis have? Bruce Willis. Oh my God, look at them. Yes, you got it. Frontal temporal. Oh my gosh. Okay, why am I here? Why am I here? Okay. All right, okay. I got one more. All right. Now everybody used to watch the Golden Girls. I love this lady. We know this. Oh my gosh, Mia again. Mia. All right, so this is Estelle Getty, and she played Sophia. So she was that sassy, savvy senior. I would just love to have cared for someone like this. She was that sassy, savvy senior, Sophia Petrillo. And what type of dementia do you think Sophia actually passed away from? So, Anna? Yeah, so Sophia actually had Lewy body dementia. So again, I put this to show you that dementia has no face, no particular demographic range, but we have to be aware of it because we have to be aware of it and we have to be prepared to learn about it. Next slide. Good job. Good participation. So remember the first lesson, you have to know the risks. We talked about Wendy's risks. We talk about other different types of risks. The second lesson is once you know the risks, you have to know what type of dementia you're dealing with. And then thirdly, once there's a suspicion for dementia, that's where I come in. That's where myself and social workers and the nurses and the wonderful team comes in so that we can establish the correct diagnosis. So what do I mean about that? Next slide, Anna. So what I'm looking for is really and truly a reliable historian. This is the person who's going to tell me, hey, Dr. Rogers, Grammy has just been acting a little different now for at least the last 6 months, and I'm noticing that she's asking me the same questions over and over. She's having some problems, knowing that it's cold and she's supposed to put that coat on. She's not dressing appropriately, or, she's forgetting to take those medications. So that's what you really want to, that information is critical for a physician, for a nurse practitioner, for anybody in the dementia field to hone in. Next slide. So the other thing that we as physicians do, and we in the medical practice, we are like detectives. So our goal is to, once you tell us there's a change, there is something that's different, then I go on a trail and I'm like, okay, God, give me the wisdom to figure out what are some clues that could point me into one versus the other. So if you tell me that your mom had a stroke, then I'm looking for, issues with maybe their walking. If you tell me that there's a concern for Parkinson's, I'm going to be looking for like a resting tremor. If there is the concern that there is underlying, high blood pressure, then I may be looking, feeling for their pulses and so forth, just to clue me into one type of dementia versus the other. Next. So there's this really nice screen. And if you notice, a lot of the questions are everyday life questions. People will ask, does your mom say the same thing over and over? Were they able to use the VCR and now they're struggling to figure out which button is which? Are they mixing up the dates and the years? And remember, this has to be going on for at least 6 months or more. I mean, we know sometimes people have a difficult day or they have an infection and they may be a bit what we call delirious. So it's important to look at the time frame. So we call this the 88 dementia screen. And if you answered yes to 2 or more of these things, Then you come to me and I do this cute little test that I'm sure you all are very familiar with, Anna. So the next thing I do is my in-office listen. You could do this tonight on your relatives, okay? Just tell them, don't just blame it on me. So you know what? I want to play a game with you, okay? So listen. So you want to do that in-office mocha. So you look at those 3 clocks, right? What I do with my in-office mini cog, I'm sorry, not mocha, in-office mini cog, I like to give my savvy ones 3 words. So I'll say, okay, Miss Jones, ball, pen, hat. You got to remember those words because I'm going to circle back and ask you for those 3 words. And then she gets all, she remembers those words. And then I'm a little bad. I kind of distract her with a clock. So I say, okay, Miss Jones, I want you to draw a clock for me. And what I'd like you to do is put the time to say 2:30. You could change the time. Sometimes I'll say 10 past 11. And what you notice is the first clock, looks pretty good. Good circles closed. The numbers are correctly spaced. The arrows are, they look really good. They're normal. But what do you notice about the second clock? What do you notice about the second clock? Put in the chat what looks different about that second clock compared to the normal clock. So put in the chat if something looks a little off. So if you notice that, she's not, bunching or spreading the numbers equally, that's the first sign that doctors that, like myself look at. Then more importantly, we look at, the shape of the clock looks a little different. The numbers, exactly, Miss Charlotte, the numbers aren't nice and equidistant. And then look at the arrows, look at the hands on the clock. She didn't even remember to put the arrows. Exactly. So we call that like an early Alzheimer's. Yes, Miss Virginia. And what we'll also say is that could represent what we call a mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. So that simply means that person's still going to work, they're still functioning, they're cooking their meals, they're, taking their meds, they're dressing themselves. But we got to follow this person a little bit more closely, because if we don't, look at the last clock. What do you notice about the last clock? Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on with that last clock. So the shape of the clock. So the clock, yeah, exactly, Miss Leslie. So the clock is enclosed, the circle is enclosed, the numbers aren't arranged the way they were years before, and then there is no rhyme or reason. There's no hands on the clock. So these are really simple tools that we can use to screen. Again, we don't use it to diagnose, but we use it to screen. Exactly. Next slide. So once we've done these mini cogs in the office, my students and I, we use a lot of the other university cognitive tools. Yes, Ms. Jackson, yeah, those numbers are all over the place. So we use a tool called the St. Louis University mental status exam. And I tend to tell my savvy one, I'm like, listen, this is all about what you are strong in. So I don't make them think, they're like, Dr. Ortiz, what are you doing? Why are we doing this test? So one of the things I like to let them know that I like to focus on their strengths, what they're good at. And it literally, if you look at some of those questions, it can correspond and correlate to the different parts of the brain that are of concern, like their memory, their attention, etc. And we score it. You can see the scoring down below. We give an extra point. We score it based on, what level of education that person has. But it's really, really important to kind of use these tests early on if there is a concern about memory loss or dementia. Next slide.
Dr. Rogers, excuse me, but we have Congressman Ro Kahanen on, and he has a hard stop at 4:10. And okay, he's gonna, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna let the congressman come on, because we want to hear about our legislative updates. And we're gonna ask him to come on and tell us, what's going on from the legislative perspective. Okay. And then we're gonna have you come back and finish your presentation. So thank you so much. If we can just sounds good. Okay. Take a break right now. So we're going to have Mr. Christopher Likes, who is a member of our steering committee, introduce the congressman, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Likes, and like everybody else said, welcome to our 4th annual Connectional Purple Sunday. I'm here to introduce one of our honorable speakers, Representative Ro Khanna from California's 17th District. I was introduced to him by our first keynote speaker of the Purple Sundays, Antoine Seawright. His uncle is Bishop Harry Seawright with the Alabama AME churches. We met at South Carolina's first in the nation primary dinner back in February. Representative Ro Khanna has held this seat since looks like January of 2017. Before that, he served as Deputy Secretary for the United States Department of Commerce under President Obama. Representative Ro Khanna resides in Fremont, California with his wife and 2 children. He's done great work with Representative John Lewis as they examine how Gandhi's movement and civil rights intertwined back in 2018. And he's here today to speak to us about Alzheimer's and how and what he and the Congress are doing to help us deal with this devastating disease. Representative, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Christopher. It's a real honor to be with all of you. I enjoyed hearing some of Dr. Rogers' presentation, so I'm sorry that she was interrupted by this, and I'm sure she will continue and you'll all enjoy her. But Christopher, thank you for inviting me. I am just so impressed by your advocacy for Alzheimer's funding, and I wanted to take a moment to let you know how much what you're doing matters. In my few years in Congress, about 8 years, I have seen Alzheimer's funding go from $500 billion to almost $4 billion. And we know that this disease hello?
We got you back.
Okay. We know that this disease affects the African community more than other populations. And so to see, because of your advocacy, this going from 500 billion to 4 billion is extraordinary. And I appreciate the partnership that you have with Bishop Seawright and Antoine and the AME Church. I mean, the AME Church, when the AME Church speaks, people listen, whether it's about a ceasefire in Gaza, whether it's about issues of racial justice, economic justice, and certainly when it is about having the research for Alzheimer's and the funding for Alzheimer's. We need about double the budget. I mean, we're at 4 billion. We need, from my understanding, to double that budget to really be able to do the research that can slow the progression of the disease. And there have been some advances to at least slow the progression and ultimately to have hopefully a cure for the disease. But it's not just the research for the patient. We need support and research in how do we help the caregivers, because obviously often having someone with Alzheimer's in a person's family can be very, very hard for the caregiver and for the caregiver's health and the well-being. And so we need also initiatives surrounding that. And we need to help dispel this myth that people get Alzheimer's just in their 70s or 80s. I know many families in my district and others who've had the situation of someone getting Alzheimer's in their 40s, 50s, 60s. It's not a disease that just hits people in their older age. So I wanted to take this time to thank Christopher, to thank all of you, to thank the AME Church for what you're doing. Please come to the Hill, wear your purple, meet with members of Congress. This is one of the very few things that even Republicans still support, people like Tom Cole. It matters when you come there. No one has done more, I just have to say, than Representative Clyburn. I have to give him just some credit for what he has done on this issue and so many others. But your advocacy, your help coming to the Hill will help us get the funding that we need. And I admire and appreciate you're taking this time and forming a very important strategic partnership with the AME Church. So thank you for letting me say a few words. And please know how much so many of my colleagues appreciate what you're doing and how committed we are to getting this funding that would make a tremendous difference in the lives of Alzheimer's patients and their families.
We appreciate you. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us today. So now, Dr. Rogers, if you'd like to continue your presentation, and thank you for allowing that interruption.
Oh, no worries, not at all. Thank you. All right. So we basically said that you would come into us, and I was reading some of the chats where people were saying, yeah, this is why I realized my doctor was doing some of these tests. So once we've done a good history, we've done those screening tools. One of the things that we have to do is make sure that we're not missing treatable things. One of the vitamins that it's imperative that we check is your B12, B as in boy, 12. Your nerves need that vitamin to function. Like we said in Wendy's case, we'll also check your thyroid levels. We'll even check some of the calcium levels because that can affect your ability your cognition as well. There are newer screening tests out there that I won't get into too much, but there's also brain scans that we'll tend to do, which are your MRIs or your CAT scans. Next. And then lesson 4. So remember, your risk factors, get the right diagnosis. Make sure that you're involved, your physician. And then lesson 4, create a plan. I think it was one thing that I gathered from Wendy's situation was, you really need to plan ahead. So lesson number 4, I want to share. Next slide. So one of the things that I think a lot of caregivers can probably put an amen in the chat is, as dementia progresses, we tend to see a lot of behavioral issues. We tend to see them in various types of dementia, but they often come out at later stages. And in simple terms, when, a family member is, yes, Laura says amen, definitely. So one of the things that, when people sort of what we say act out, it's simply an expression of an unmet need. So they're trying to communicate to you something that's going on, and that can be something internal, that can be something external. And in actuality, that may be something that you're reflecting to them. I can think of wonderful caregivers, their hearts are in the right places, but if they get really tense and anxious, sometimes the patient will reflect that back, that anxiety. So it's really, really important. We have medications out there, but I always believe let's see what we can do with non-pharmacological methods. So some of the things that we've used with great, benefit are things as simple as aromatherapy. That touch therapy is amazing. And then I also tell people to roll the dice. Yeah, Miriam saying chocolate helps her father. So roll the dice. And you're like, Dr. Nakisha, what is the dice method? So next slide. So in University of Michigan, back in about 2014, we had Dr. Helen C. Kale. She's a geriatric psychiatrist. And her thought process was, before we, start to, want to write a prescription, I need to control this agitation and these outbursts and these behaviors. Let's slow down. Let's try to figure out what this behavior is, so that we can find other ways to manage it before we go straight to medications. And I think everybody is like, yes, if I can avoid a pill or injection, let's do that. So what Helen Kale came up with her researchers was this DICE method. And I'm sure caregivers are doing it, but she just put an acronym to it. So basically, when someone, if they start, being agitated or not wanting to comply with like dressing or having issues with sleeping or, wandering, whatever that behavior is, you really want to describe it. You want to investigate it a little bit more. You want to work as a team, caregiver, patient, medical team, holistic team, create a plan, and then periodically check in to see if your plan is working. Next slide. So one of the things that's so important, and I tell you, please, if there's nothing else you all take from this presentation, plan ahead. I'm telling you, I could tell you of many stories where we do not do this early on in the course of the condition. And then later on, an emergency sentinel event happens. Somebody has a traumatic fall, somebody's in ICU, somebody's being rushed, to the emergency room. And then, sometimes you become flustered. So when that diagnosis is made, please, I'm telling you, appoint a medical proxy. And that person is a trusted person who is going to be your surrogate decision maker if you are unable to do that. Reiterate that medical proxy, you and that person, if you are the person that's being diagnosed with dementia, you really got to be on the same accord with the goals for resuscitation. So the simple way I tell my patients, like, hey, Miss Joe, now if something should happen to you, and I like to keep it very simple, if your heart stopped beating, the ambulance came to your home and they found you on the floor, what would you want them to do? Would you want an attempt made? Would you want to be placed on a life support machine? Would you not want that done? And also, I would say, some people will say, oh, Dr. Rogers, I want him to do something, but I don't want to live on a machine indefinitely. So we tend to use, 14 days as a realistic time frame, and I'll tell you why. Typically, by day 14, if a patient, hasn't responded, typically we start to do more invasive treatments, and those invasive treatments will be, putting a feeding tube to give them nutrition. We tend not to want to do those things if this is stated in your plan. So it's really important to find someone that you trust. Reiterate the goals for resuscitation, understand and address end of life. At the end of the day, when end of life approaches, how would you want that to play out? Be very specific. Here in Florida, we give our savvy ones, all patients, this booklet called the 5 Wishes. I don't know if you all do that in Texas, but we give them this 5 Wishes booklet, and they're able to sit down, and it tells who will make decisions for me. How do I want my passing to be? But try to have those conversations when things have not, come to an emergency halt. And understand PEG tubes. Typically, we think of a PEG tube as a bridge to regaining function. So we know that as dementia progresses, you tend to lose your ability to swallow. You tend to lose the muscles, lose the control. So if we think of PEG tubes, we think of a PEG feeding tube as, for example, in a stroke patient, where we're trying to bridge them back through therapy to be able to recover function. So really, really, really important that you make these decisions while things are going well. Next thing I want you to do, appoint the medical proxy. Please, I cannot stress this enough. Appoint someone that you trust to, help to oversee your daily living expenses, help with estate planning, wills, etc. Do this before an emergency, rears its head. So medical proxy, the financial proxy person, get those things in writing before something occurs. Next. And then something that we don't really think about is thinking about where will you spend those amazing, years of your life. And a lot of times people don't think about this again until the fall happens, until they end up in the emergency room. And then you're scrambling, trying to work with a caseworker and get on a waiting list for a skilled nursing facility. Trust me, I will tell you, please, nothing else you take from this talk, start having those conversations. Is the home safe? Number one. Most of my savvy ones want to stay at home. They're like, Dr. Rogers, my children are not putting me in a facility, and I completely respect that. But make sure that you address, safe home aging, really and truly, before something happens. And incorporate, we're living in an AI world. So, incorporate Alexa. I have a patient that has been having, falls, but she's 92 years young. Her daughter is 69, and they are pretty much inseparable. And they have made this pact that, no, I'm going to keep my mom. So what they've done is they've installed cameras. They have Alexa. So heaven forbid if the daughter goes out to run an errand and the mom's at home, she'll have Alexa or Siri programmed to call the ambulance if she has a fall, even though she's also wearing her life alert. So use technology to make that home as safe as possible, but then within the limits. So once you recognize that, at-home care is not really possible because caregivers got to work, they got to take care of their growing family, then start the transition of care process early. Go in and see places before you have to, be, forced to be in a place you may not have chosen on your own. So next, I think that is it. Oh, and finally, yes, Anna, we put in that you guys are amazing as caregiver champions, but, it's really important to recognize, my sister calls us, carepreneurs. But remember that, you know, caregiver fatigue is real. We've seen people, a lot of the daughters and the wives, they come in, you know, they're so catered and focused on their savvy one that they neglect going to their doctor's appointments. Who's guilty of that? Who's guilty of that? You know, you get so caught up and so devoted to caring for this person that at the risk of your own medical care. We've seen, you know, people battling depression, anxiety, sleep loss, back pains from lifting their savvy one, you know, untreated diabetes. So make sure that you check in just as much care you want to give the savvy one. Make sure that you're also attending to your medical care. Seek out support. You know, what Ms. Goodall and this entire team is doing is amazing, and I commend you all for coming on to get the knowledge. And find support groups where, you know, there's other caregivers that you can find out, like, what are they doing to stay sane? Like, what are they using? Seek out support. And most importantly, live, you know, still enjoy that person. I know it's easier said than done, but, you know, try to enjoy, live while you're caregiving. And in fact, I've known about a Catherine Spear, and she actually does these really nice dementia cruises where family members can have their loved one on the cruise with them, but they have staff that takes care of them. So there's support groups out there to help you, and you being on here is a testament of your commitment to, you know, living while you're caregiving. Next slide. I think that, lesson 5. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. So lesson 5, I think as Dr. Burnett and Dr. Hill talked about, we have to, and the congressman mentioned, we got to get in the research. We as people of color have to be involved in the research. Next slide. And what do I mean by that? So if you were following the media, you were probably also aware of this new kid on the block. His sister, I would say, is called Aduhelm. And this drug is called Leqembi or lecanemab. And the way I like to explain it is, think of the cells in your brain as trying to talk to each other. Basically, in Alzheimer's, for example, there are some proteins that prevent the cells from having a good phone conversation. So what this Leqembi or lecanemab medicine does, it's given IV, so it's not a pill, it's given IV, and it goes into the brain where those tangles of proteins are, and it's like your Swiffer. It kind of mops up those protein tangles so that the cells can actually talk to each other. Now, this medication is given every 2 weeks, but it's only for people in the early stages. That's who it was designed for. The cost can be astronomical, and it varies per insurance. But as you know, we've all reiterated, there's limited studies in people of minority. So in the study that they released early in January in New England Journal of Medicine, we made up only 2%. 2% of the population that was studied for this medication. Next slide. So one of the things, you know, everything has a side effect, and Leqembi is no different. So again, remember, it's given in the early stages to mop up those proteins that stop the cells from being able to communicate. But while it's mopping up those proteins are actually forming the cornerstone of blood vessels in your brain. So it's also affecting the proteins in the normal blood vessels. So what can that lead to? The blood vessels tend to become a little leaky. So patients tend to end up with some brain bleeds and even some swelling. And you can see what we call ARIAs. The name of the protein is amyloid. So these amyloid-related bleeds and swelling are what we see on an MRI. So when patients are on this medicine, it's imperative they got to get a baseline MRI before they start this medicine. And throughout the treatment, they have to get MRIs. And if doctors see these ARIAs on MRIs, we obviously have to stop the medication. And patients may not even have symptoms of headaches. So there's always, I got to give you all the whole total package of these medications. But the most important thing is we need to just know, I think knowledge is power, and we got to get in these studies to see how it's really truly affecting people of color. Next slide. I think that was it. So stewardship summary for the Purple Connectional summary. And Anna, what's our summary? So basically, you know, our stewardship of the mind summary, if nothing else, just remember from this talk, understand your risks for dementia, your age, being, you know, head trauma, depression, all those things, underlying conditions, stroke, hypertension, diabetes. Number 2, remember, dementia is 2 or more areas of the brain that's affected and you're unable to function. Remember, you can use my little mnemonic with those personalities: President Reagan, Alzheimer's, Sophia, Lewy body, frontotemporal, Bruce Willis, alcohol-related, Wendy. Once you have a suspicion of dementia, you need to get with the right team to really clinch the diagnosis. And those are screening tests we have, there's blood work, there's scans to really define and the correct type of dementia. And number 4, plan. I believe that Age Like Royalty is about living your best life and not leaving things to chance. So pick the trusted person who's going to make medical choices in the event that you cannot speak for yourself, who's basically going to reiterate what you told them to say. Pick the trusted person who's going to look at those finances in the event you're unable to do those things. Determine if at home is where you need to be, or if you need to start, if you're a solo ager, you may need to say, oh, you know what, I think I need to, have some facilities that I'm scoping out in my 70s for when that time comes. And then lesson number 5, we are such an amazing group of people. So it's really important that we bring ourselves to the table and stay up to date with research. There's lots more of those IV drugs coming out. Leqembi was just the one to really get a lot of talk going in the medical circles, but stay up to date, go on the Alzheimer's, website, Mayo clinics, Shands clinics, they have all of these in research protocols going on, and just, find out how you can get involved to learn more. And what else do we have? Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly run through these because in the interest of time, I know there's other speakers, so I don't want to be selfish, and you could just go really fast. I just wanted to say thank you all for just your attention. We have a lot of these secrets in Secrets of Sassy Savvy Seniors. Keep clicking. We have that course that we love teaching in groups of people that want to learn more about aging. I love to work with you all, just for signing up. We'd love to just kind of talk and get your feel of dementia. So if you have questions, this is completely complimentary, where you'd be able to just call me and we can talk and answer some questions. But with that, God bless you all. Thank you for your patience. We apologize again for the late start, but thank you. I hope this was helpful and you all have a blessed afternoon.
Fantastic. You guys got free help from this expert. Oh my goodness, Dr. Rogers. Thank you so very much for that easily understandable and thorough presentation.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rogers. It was wonderful. I felt that our audience would be impressed by you and your delivery, because you're just so exciting and so informative at the same time. So again, we appreciate all of the knowledge that you've shared with us today. And I'm sure if you'll put your information in the chat, I'm sure some of our attendees will be calling you. Okay? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Excellent presentation. Sassy Seniors. So now I'm going to ask Ms. Beverly Berry, who is my counterpart on the Alzheimer's Association side, if she will come on. And Dr. Burnett is looking at me.
You're right. I am looking at you. I wanted to address a couple of questions that are in the chat.
Okay.
Both on Facebook and which has been shared 28 times, by the way. Both on Facebook and in our chat. This recording will be on, not only is it already on Facebook, which we will retain it. It is marked as a featured. It will go on our YouTube channel, the AME International Health Commission YouTube channel, which will flow directly to our website, amechealth.org. I also have dropped into the chat and placed on the Facebook page the 2 links that were referenced. One is the 5
wishes.
The 5 wishes.
5 wishes, thank you. The 5 wishes, I put the link for that so that you can start working on that as we go immediately after this meeting. And I've also placed the link for all of the clinical trials related to Alzheimer's and dementias. Both are now on the Facebook page as well as in this chat. Sorry for the interruption. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Great news. You're always so efficient and so thorough, and God knows I appreciate your assistance. So now I'm going to present to you Ms. Beverly Berry, and Ms. Berry is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Alzheimer's Association Home Office. She and Dr. Carl Hill provide great leadership to our committee. And I just am so appreciative of Ms. Berry for all that she does to support the work that we do on the AME side. This weekend, some of you may have already heard about the stage play Unforgettable. That was, I'm trying to think of the writer's name, but I can't, Garrett Davis is his name. Garrett Davis wrote this play some years ago, and it's called Unforgettable, and it's been in several markets already. But this past weekend, it was in Miami. So Dr. Hill and Miss Berry have been in Miami Friday for an event and Saturday for the showing, and now they're appearing here with us. And we are so appreciative of them. So Miss Berry, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you to have your words, and then if you would introduce Miss Garza and Miss Carter for us, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Rosalind, and thank you for your leadership with this partnership between the AME Church and the Alzheimer's Association. It is an absolute joy to work with you all and just moving the needle to reaching more communities through this partnership has been amazing for the past 4 years, and we're going to continue to do this work because it's so important. So we'll be lifetime partners in this space. So thank you for all that you do, and I'm very honored to be a part of this partnership and this partnership steering committee. But today I have the honor of introducing my colleagues, Amelia Garza, who's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager for the Illinois chapter. And she's also a member of our AME Church Alzheimer's Association National Partnership Steering Committee. I also have the pleasure of introducing Vivian Carter, who's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director for the Greater Indiana chapter, where she also leads the All's Equity for Indiana initiative. I'm excited to have them share some of the great work that they are leading and doing in their respective region to help support diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts across the country to reach more communities that are disproportionately affected by this devastating disease. Their team recently held an Alzheimer's Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion conversation titled Unpacking Faith-Based Institutions and Their Lasting Impact on Communities. Their goal of this discussion was to enhance understanding how to effectively collaborate with faith-based organizations and encourage individuals to engage with faith-based institutions. Our very own Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall was one of our panelists, and at this time I'll turn it over to Amelia Garza and Vivian Carter to share more about the amazing work that they're doing in their region. Amelia, Vivian.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. It's truly a blessing to be with each and every one of you on this beautiful Sunday. As Beverly mentioned, what I love to say, my partner in crime here, Miss Amelia Garza, and I support our region's efforts to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we think about partnership at the Alzheimer's Association, it's really a two-way street. And so we really wanted to take the approach of making sure that our team members know just as much about the African American Episcopal Church as the African American Episcopal Church knows about the Alzheimer's Association. So it was really important for us to hold an hour-long training and talking about how to work with faith-based communities, understanding not just where we are right now in the African American Episcopal Church's history, but how it started, the rich legacy of the African American Episcopal Church as well. And so we walked through some items such as what questions to ask, how to show up. We also were able to ask Mrs. Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall about what makes us a good partner. What is that? How do we show up for you all, and making sure that we're just not knocking on the door with our hands out, but making sure that we have a partnership that is built to last on the local level with many of our church organizations that we're working with here. And so we were really thrilled to bring that presentation together. And it was an opportunity for Mrs. Goodall to really talk with our entire region, which is made up of Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky, about the amazing work that she does. And so we were so pleased to have her there, and we're so excited to continue to make sure that we bring opportunities like this to our local team members, because not only is it just important to hold this partnership at the national level, but how do we grow and reach more community members at the local level? I'll turn it over to my colleague Amelia now.
Thanks, Vivian. It's so wonderful to be here with you all too. And, you know, just last week we were with the 4th District, and I believe I saw some 4th District members in the chat. If you were here, I would love to see you all. And it was just so amazing. One of the members that I had the pleasure of speaking to, she shared how her mother had suffered from this disease. And it was only when she took her mother into their home church on Sunday mornings when she would see her mother's spirit return to her. And she said it was those songs, the hymns, the gospels, that familiar space, being with everyone. She said songs like "Holy, Holy, Holy," "Victorious Jesus." And it was that brought her mother's spirit back to her, despite the dementia and despite the disease. And so we spoke so much about how the AME Church is a space not only to help support each other through this journey, but to help each of us heal. The amount of healing that this member, and I don't want to say her name, so if she's here, I'll allow, please do write in the chat, but how much it meant to her through her journey as she was being a caregiver for her mother. And so it is truly those spaces, in being a part of the Alzheimer's Association, that we are able to connect on the local level. We can say, we will come to church on Sunday. You know, how can we have an individual Purple Sunday for your specific church? And what does your congregation want? Do you all want to dress up in purple on a Sunday? Would you like us to come in and say 5 words or you know, talk about the different things that we know? Do you want us at a welcome table? Do you want us at, you know, your cookout, family reunion? Is there a way that we can partner more and more together? Because we know that we can't work alone, and we know that we truly need to lean on each other to make sure that we are reaching everyone who needs these resources. So that's a little bit about how we have worked with different districts, how we have worked with AME churches across our states, across our regions. And I also want to share how grateful it has been for me. I'm not a member of the AME church, but when I was caregiving for my grandmother, I saw firsthand the power that spirit can have for loved ones. So I just am so grateful for the time here with you all today. And I also want to thank you all too. This work is hard and it takes a lot. And so I just want to say thank you for partnering with us and allowing us to show up and support everyone, because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner.
Thanks, Amelia. And I apologize for my errors. I understand it's the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Please forgive me, everyone.
Thank you both. Thank you both for those words and for letting us know how you're working with our AME churches in various districts to get information out into our congregation. We are very excited and we are pleased that Ms. Garza is a member of our steering committee, and we look forward to more interactions with the both of you. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move along to one of our missionary sisters, and that is Sister Joan Oxendine. You know, in the Black church, we refer to everyone as reverend or sister or brother. So I'm referring to Ms. Oxendine as Sister Joan Oxendine. She's a member of Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C., where she served as a senior steward for 19 years. She's a Sunday school teacher for beginners and senior high students. She's currently teaching the adult women's class, and is the president of the Sarah Allen. And that's the founder of the AME Church was Bishop Richard Allen, and his wife was Mrs. Sarah Allen. So we often name our missionary societies after someone of distinction. So their missionary society is called the Sarah Allen Women's Missionary Society. Sister Joan is the state president of Greater Washington Church Women United, which is one of the Women's Missionary Society's affiliated groups since July 2023. She served as the president of the Prince George's unit of Church Women United for the past 20 years. She's a retired adult nurse practitioner, retiring after serving for 40 years. Sister Joan was born in Beckley, West Virginia, and obtained her BSN from Bowie State University and her master's in public health from Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health. She attended Howard University to become certified as a physician assistant, which we know as a PA. She passed the national certification boards for both the PA and the NP. In 2018, she became a published author. Her book, Growing Up in the United States of America, A Nurse Encounters Starvation in the Uninsured. And this was after an encounter that she had when a child had been brought to the ER because of malnutrition. And of course, the family at the time was uninsured or underinsured and could not afford, to take the child in sooner. So I want to welcome Sister Joan Oxendine and let her talk to us about what the Sarah Allen Missionary Society, Women's Missionary Society, is doing at Metropolitan. Sister Joan?
Thank you very much, Sister Rosalind. It's our pleasure to share with you our experience with the Alzheimer's Association. Our food bank is in partnership with a local group, and one of their members was a member of the Alzheimer's Association. And so she approached us and asked if the Missionary Society would be interested in doing a program on Alzheimer's. Me having my maternal aunt succumb to Alzheimer's, and my husband had two of his sisters to succumb also. So it was close to my heart, and I said, absolutely. So we got our act together with the guidance of the Alzheimer's Association in Washington, D.C., and the Missionary Society partnered with the health ministry and the Christian education and the lay organization. And so this was in the end of 2022. So in 2023, February, if you'll put my slides up now, Dr. Burnett, we did a 3-prong workshop. And at the behest of our coordinator for the health ministries, she suggested that we do a dementia-friendly program and get our members of Metropolitan dementia-friendly. So when we started the workshop, we opened it up to the entire Second Episcopal District. And so our first workshop was dementia-friendly and introducing people to what Alzheimer's is all about. Second slide. Okay, the second workshop was held in March, and that was on legal issues. And we had very competent people to deliver our workshop for us, and it was really great. And then lastly, we had a third workshop in April, and that workshop was addressing caregiving. And again, we had excellent presenters for our workshop. And after we had our third workshop, we gave a certificate to all of those who attended. and they became dementia friendly. Now, for the first workshop, we had 80 people to register, but only 40 attended. For the second workshop, we had 62 to register and 42 attended. On the last workshop, we had 91 to register and 68 to attend. So we have more work to do, and we are absolutely available to work again with the Alzheimer's Association to get the word out and make our congregants absolutely Alzheimer friendly. Thank you. That's a copy of the certificate that everyone got.
I think it's important to note that persistence paid off or is paying off. Each one of your numbers increase. So don't be dismayed by initial numbers. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. The word will spread. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You are muted, Rosalind.
I'm trying to unmute, Supervisor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Joan Oxendine. We really appreciate it. And as we know, my childhood friend, Celeria Moore, is Episcopal President in the second, and she does a missionary program. Missionary Institute is what it's called. And they feature Alzheimer's awareness during their Mission Institute. So we really appreciate that as well. So Beverly, I saw your beautiful picture on one of the flyers, and I think you were part of one of the programs. Do you want to introduce Melissa's video, please?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Well, hello again. Up next, you will hear from Melissa Labange. She's the Senior Associate Director of Constituent Event Partnerships at the Alzheimer's Association Home Office. And while Melissa is unable to join us virtually in the Zoom room, she has provided a very informative video recording that highlights the impact the AME Church is making in the fight against Alzheimer's and other dementia, and how more AME churches can be a part of the walk to end Alzheimer's. So I will turn it over to the tech team to queue up Melissa's video.
Hello, my name is Melissa Labange, and I am the Associate Director of Constituent Events Partnerships, which means I have the honor and privilege of working with organizations like AME Church to raise critical funds and awareness for our signature events, including the kind of partnership that all nonprofits strive to attain. Our missions, goals, and objectives align, but AME Church takes it even further by creating a transformative partnership based around a shared commitment to impact. AME has engaged with the association in so many of the ways where we are the most proud to make an impact. For instance, our Alzheimer's Impact Movement, where we have a number of AME members that are advocates, as well as your support of the ENACT Act. And then we know that you help to share information during Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Then there are the invaluable volunteers that you have within your church that are leading support groups or community outreach educators. And then, of course, there is fundraising for the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Thank you for all that you already do for those living with dementia and for the people who care about them. And thank you for what you'll do this season as well. As a church, you understand the importance of membership engagement within the church and within the larger community. And the Walk is an outreach opportunity where you can continue to lead as proud AMEC members, but also as ambassadors for the Alzheimer's Association. And we need everyone to raise their voices in this era of treatment and in the fight to end Alzheimer's, especially those that are already loved and respected members of the community. When you open your doors to host fundraisers and events, you have the opportunity to welcome more people to your church while raising critical awareness and funds. Each of us has the power to make an impact by talking to family, friends, and community partners. But when you do it as a congregation and as AME Church, you have a much greater potential for social impact. And hosting educational opportunities and fundraising events will deepen your members' connection to the church and allow them to feel a connection to the larger community in a different way than they have before. And by actively demonstrating your commitment to serving others, you may attract new members to your congregation, but also inspire existing members to deepen their involvement. And every dollar that you raise benefits those affected by Alzheimer's disease in your community. We are able to offer incredible resources like alz.org, our online message boards through All's Connected, and our brand new tool, All's Navigator, our support groups connecting those facing the disease with a network of help in their community, as well as a free nationwide helpline that is staffed by master's level dementia experts that will help with offering information and referral, our vast library of resources about warning signs, behaviors, communication, and more. And of course, some of those funds also drive research towards treatment, prevention, and ultimately a cure. And really, this is so much more than a fundraiser. When teams across the country come together and invite people they know to join their walk team, you're opening the door to a difficult conversation that some people are really just waiting to have. They didn't know who to talk to, and your team invitation just could be the message that they have been waiting for. We don't want someone's first interaction with us to be at a walk in honor of a lost loved one while they hold their purple flower. We want them to know that we're here to help long before they ever need us. And we want to start walking with them from the beginning of their dementia journey all the way through to the end, because we know the difference it can make in the lives of families when they are working with the Alzheimer's Association. And it, of course, does have a community feel when you're at the walk, where you allow people to understand that it's acceptable to discuss Alzheimer's and dementia and to seek care and support from the Alzheimer's Association. There really is just no community like it. And when you host bake sales, auctions, concerts, whatever it is, that is just one more way to reach out your hand to help someone in need who didn't even know that the Alzheimer's Association was here to help. And you are the person who gets to share that message with them. And I want to just talk a little bit about the walk from the perspective of the fact that it's the world's largest event to raise awareness and funds for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. And it's the second largest fundraising event in the United States. So you are really a part of something very, very special. And it's really easy to get started if you haven't already joined. So you can scan this QR code if you like. You can also visit alz.org/AMEC Health to register. When you register, there's a few things I want you to take to notice. When you go to that website, you're going to see a few things. So one is you're going to click Start a Team if you're starting a team, or click Join a Team if a team already exists. So when you're starting a team, it's really important that during the registration process, you click the button that says that you're participating as part of an organization, and then make sure AME National Team is listed in the drop-down menu. If your team has already been registered and you didn't do this, don't worry, just let us know and we can connect you. And it's of course very helpful if you help name your team AME Church, because then we can always find you and connect you to the larger team. Okay, and once you register, you have access to a plethora of tools. There's social media tools, there's email tools. We also have our fabulous All's fundraising app. That is really the fastest and easiest way to do everything, including mobile check deposit. People who download the app raise 4 times more than those who don't. I personally love it because I can very easily text my friends, and then they can easily donate on their phone if they already have their payment locked, in their wallet. They can just double click. So it makes it easy for everybody, but everything available on the app is also available in your participant center. So whatever's easiest for you works for us. Okay, once you have registered, you actually are participating in a local walk event. That's why all of those dollars benefit your local chapter. So once you've registered, if you will, click on the name of your walk and you'll see all of your local event details. We have over 600 walks in the country, so you definitely want to make sure you're getting the information about your walk. And when you click on that, you'll also see you have a local staff contact person. Their name and email will be listed, and you can always reach out to them, or the chat support, which is this little orange need help button if you need anything at all. And of course, I just want to share a few tips to make sure you have a successful fundraising campaign. To increase engagement in your walk fundraising, it's important to share your why. Your story is really important. It's the most important tool that you have. So share why you're raising money for the Alzheimer's Association through your story, or why your church has chosen to get involved. Not only are people more likely to remember stories, when you craft a personal story about why this cause matters to you and you share it, you create an emotional connection between you and your potential donors. You put a face to this disease, and your story illustrates the impact of Alzheimer's much more than facts or statistics. And you can capture people's attention, which will inspire them and motivate them to take action. You can also highlight the efforts of the church by recognizing those that are going above and beyond for your campaign. This will make them feel good, and it also allows you to spotlight the great work that your organization is doing to make the world a better place. You want to ask everybody and anybody how you want the campaign to look, because if you invite them to contribute and design the campaign, it's going to increase overall engagement and investment in your success. And then we all know that feedback is helpful. So not only asking them how to design your campaign, but asking them, how did you think it went? What do you think we should do differently this year? Will keep your ideas fresh. Sometimes it can really bring new talents and skills to the table that you didn't know your members had or wanted to contribute. And last but not least, we all know that leadership investment is critical. So any way that you can leverage leaders, whether that's through an announcement in a newsletter, on Sunday at church, or at event day, when you guys are raising money, if you have that leader stand up and say a few words, it will make all of the difference. Thank you again for everything that you already do for those living with Alzheimer's and dementia, and for the people who care for them. And thank you for all that you'll do this year. Together, we will end ALS.
That was wonderful. And although Melissa couldn't be with us, it was wonderful that she took the time to send a video. And we appreciate that. And we're going to look forward to more churches having walk teams. And, you know, it's wonderful to get out and exercise. And so many of our churches already have walk teams. And through that video, you saw how the individual walk teams will roll up into the national AME church walk team. So now, without further ado, Reverend Ivy has introduced our Bishop Brookins, the chair of the International Health Commission already, and the presiding prelate of the 18th Episcopal District, who is a wonderful, wonderful champion for Alzheimer's. And she's a great supporter of the work that we do. And Bishop Brookins, it's just great. You know, I know you're always running somewhere and somewhere. And so we truly appreciate your taking the time to be with us this afternoon. So we'll look forward to hearing your call to action. Thank you.
Thank you again so much, Sister Rosalind. You are a walking wonder unto yourself, and teamed up with Dr. Burnett, I am convinced that on our watch and Dr. Hill's watch, we're going to bring an end to Alzheimer's. We're going to bring an end to people feeling like they're having to endure this alone. We're going to bring an end to people feeling like they don't know how to distinguish the different types of dementia, the different types of Alzheimer's. We already saw people in the chat, our missionaries, being able to clearly distinguish the differences. Certainly with what Dr. Rogers taught us, we now know that if there are 2 of the lobes that are impacted, we're going to start to be impacted. These Purple Sunday events have truly been a blessing, not just personally, but I think for the increasing numbers of people that we've been able to reach, for the testimonies that have gone out from these Purple Sunday events. And so what we walk away from these with is an assurance that we can, in fact, do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And that includes some of the hard work of caregiving, the hard work of supporting caregivers, the hard work of caregivers having to recognize that maybe they are now in need of care themselves and having to take the hard step of determining that their loved one can no longer remain safely at home, either for their sake or for their and the caregiver's sake. We have had so many invitations today for ways that we can possibly engage this work, recognizing from the outset that diversity, equity, and inclusion are under attack throughout these United States. They are becoming bad words. And all that means is we don't want people of diverse backgrounds, people who are not white males, to have access, equal access to all of the clinical trials, to all of the medications, to all of the geriatricians. We are advocating in our work together that you would get involved, that each of you who are watching this today would get involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to Alzheimer's and other dementias. You can do that by, if you are a caregiver, joining a support group to make sure that you take care of your own self as you take care of your loved ones, by continuing to become educated about the differences and sharing that education. In other Purple Sunday events, we've talked about what it feels like when you're in a local congregation and you start to see somebody who you have worked with all these years start to change their behaviors. And then we have these politics of respectability. When is it okay to say something? To whom can I say something? How do I approach talking to somebody who I'm recognizing changes in their behavior? And it's usually members of the church. If the person lives alone and that person is active in church, it is often the church members who recognize first the signs that go along with the changes that someone is experiencing. And so you can empower yourself to become an advocate for your church member who you love and who you're recognizing those signs in, and in trying to talk to others about the disease and teaching them what you've learned in these Purple Sunday events, all of which are on the YouTube page for the AME Church and our website if you want to go back and listen to some of the music. I saw Virginia Harvin asking repeatedly in the chat, doesn't music help? Yes, and in our last Purple Sunday event, we had this wonderful musicologist who came in, and her ministry is with persons experiencing Alzheimer's and dementia, using music as a tool for healing and helping them and their caregivers to just have a moment of recognition with their loved ones who can sometimes remember the words to the songs when they can no longer remember that it is their daughter or their son sitting right in front of them. Encourage the medical people in your family. You know people in your family who feel led to nursing and to the medical profession of any kind. Encourage them that we only have 7,000 geriatricians in the United States. And we need to have way more because we are aging very quickly. And watching Sister Goodall, I'm clear that I need to go sign up with my geriatrician right now so that I can have a future that looks like hers, but I may not be able to find a geriatrician. So talk to the people. If you have family members, friends, people who go to church with you, who you know just feel called to the medical profession and have a special sensitivity in working with seniors, ask them, encourage them to get involved in that field because we need more. We need more people like Dr. Rogers who will offer us a free phone conversation about trying to figure out what our next steps should be. Then the outstanding report we just had from the Women's Missionary Society in the 2nd District is a very tangible example of something that you can just start doing right away, whether you're Sons of Alliance, WMS, lay organization, or maybe a group of you working together, RAYAC, YPD, whoever it is. I mean, what if the YPD were to take on this Alzheimer's ministry? What kind of intergenerational activities would that create? What kind of new relationships and bonds might that create for both the young people and for the seniors that we're seeking to serve? And then lastly, join the walk. The walk isn't fundraising that necessarily goes directly into our pockets. But as I started, I said, on our watch, I'm just going to claim that we are going to be able to oversee the end to this disease. And certainly the walk is the funding that helps with research and with all those other things. Again, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We don't have to do everything, but what we do set our hands to do, we can accomplish in the name of God. And so I just call you to action. If you benefited from this Purple Sunday event today, Please don't keep it to yourself. Run and tell somebody and get involved in this battle with us. Thank you so much for your presence and participation. And thank you, Dr. Burnett, for your outstanding leadership of the Health Commission as the medical director for the last 193 years. And with that, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Bishop. We appreciate it. I have some remarks, but I'm going to defer to Dr. Burnett. Do you have any remarks before we close out?
I am thankful that you all have been here. Thank you, Bishop Brookins, for your leadership of the Health Commission as its chair. It has been very impactful for everything that we do. Thank you, Sister Rosalind, for your dynamic work as we move forward. I can't even come up with words to express my gratitude for your work. That is all. I have dropped several links and will continue to drop them even after we are gone. Please feel free to share the links to everything. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, it truly does take a village to do the stuff that we do. And I'm not a techie. Dr. Burnett is a techie. So, you know, when all the behind the scenes stuff that makes this program work, thank Reverend Dr. Supervisor Miriam Burnett for that, because she is excellent. And all I do is say, this is what I'd like to see, and she makes it happen. She's magical. And so, you know, thank you so much for what you do. Bishop Brookins, we can't thank you enough for all of your support. I just want to give a few comments. We'd like for all of our members to volunteer, find your local Alzheimer's Association and volunteer. They need presenters, they need people to go out into the community to talk about what it is we're trying to do. And during the course of that, we're going to ask the staff there to look at those of us who are volunteering as potential board members, because that's the way that we can really have an impact into what's going on at the Alzheimer's Association in our various communities. I volunteered, I served on the board, you know, that's what I do. But that's our ultimate goal, is to be there to have an impact. I want to recognize Mrs. Charlotte Martin, who is the first vice president of the WMS Connectional WMS, who is on with us today. We are certainly so appreciative of the work that you have helped us with, Sister Charlotte. You sent our flyer out. We have gotten responses from missionary societies across, even in Canada. Sister Patience contacted me and asked me for some information. So we know that the information went forth, and we truly appreciate what you did. And we are looking forward to partnering with the Connectional Women's Missionary Society and other auxiliaries of the AME Church to help us get the information out. Now, this is a funny exchange. I'm in PT, physical therapy. So yesterday, there was a Caucasian young lady and an African-American young man. And the Caucasian lady said, oh, and I have to go to this DEI class. And so the Black guy said, well, what's that? So Lord help us all. But I just chuckled as I'm saying they're getting rid of DEI, and here they're trying to understand what it is. Finally, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America has an opportunity for a high school student to receive a $5,000 award. If the student, it's high school, if the student has been impacted by Alzheimer's disease in any way, they need to write a story and send it in. Check out the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. I'm sure so many of our youngsters are helping to take care of their grandparents. And so we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to compete for that award, okay? The deadline is April 1, so it's right around the corner. Please tell everybody you know. This has been fabulous. We thank you for staying with us today. And we look forward to, you know, my mother's 96, and she said to me, I haven't bothered her about the program, talk to her about it, because her health is declining. But she said to me this morning, isn't it time for your program? And I said, what program, Ma? And she said, your Alzheimer's program. Isn't it today? And I said, well, what made you think about that? And she said, because it's the third Sunday in March. So Mrs. Melanie J. Thibodeau remembered that the third Sunday in March is Connectional Purple Sunday. And so please tell everybody that we, with God's grace, will be here next year to provide more information about Alzheimer's. And with that, I'm going to ask Bishop Brookins if she will offer our benediction, please.
Thank you so much. Let's look to the Lord. God, our God, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. You know us. You love us. You see us. You have promised never to leave us nor forsake us. Your word reminds us that nothing will separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. Neither Alzheimer's nor dementia, nor weariness, nor stress, nothing, nor lack of access because of racism. Nothing will separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus. Bless each person who has participated in this program today. Bless each person who is engaged in this ministry because you have called them to the ministry and they have said yes. Bless the effectiveness of our hands, our words, our hearts. And then, God, we dare to ask for supernatural healing. We know that you can do anything. You can reverse damage that has been caused. You can do anything. And so we leave these requests on the altar in anticipation that you will receive them and act. In Jesus' name we pray. And the people of God together said, Amen.
Amen.